Who was the first saint to use the term Catholic Church? Who was one of the apostolic fathers of the early church, and according to legend, was the child Jesus blessed in Matthew 18 verse 2 and Luke 9 verse 47? Who was the third bishop of Antioch, after St. Peter and St. Evodius? The answer is St. Ignatius of Antioch, a martyr and an early church leader. He is the patron saint of churches in the Eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. There are no definitive records about the birth date of Ignatius, but it is believed he was born in Roman Syria. It is said that he converted to Christianity at a young age. According to tradition, Ignatius and his friend Polycarp were disciples of St. John the Apostle. Polycarp would later become a martyr and be declared a saint in the Catholic Church. Later, Ignatius was chosen to serve as the Bishop of Antioch. Some sources say he was a direct successor of St. Peter as Bishop of Antioch. Others say that Peter was Antioch's first bishop, Evodius II, and Ignatius III. Antioch was one of the earliest Christian communities established by the apostles, and one of the three largest cities in the Roman Empire, with the other two being Alexandria and Rome. According to ancient tradition, Ignatius was one of the children whom Jesus Christ took in his arms and blessed. The child was presented to the apostles as an example of humility, linking him to the gospel passage in Matthew 18 verses 1 to 4. In this verse, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Ignatius was called Theophorus or God-bearer, which is linked to this tradition. In the year 107, Emperor Trajan visited Antioch and forced the Christians there to choose between death and apostasy. They were being forced to worship Roman gods. Ignatius refused to deny Christ and was thus condemned to death. Usually Christians at that time were executed at or near the place where they were condemned. However, unlike typical Christians sentenced to death for their faith, Ignatius was brought to Rome for his execution. There are various speculations as to why he was transported to Rome. One says that since Ignatius was a bishop, the Romans wanted to make an example of him, and that he was too significant to be executed quietly. Another was that the Romans didn't want to further antagonize the people of Antioch. Ignatius's journey from Antioch to Rome took an estimated 4 to 6 months, beginning around 107 AD. He traveled in chains and was guarded by 10 soldiers, with the journey taking place over both land and sea. However, the soldiers allowed Ignatius to meet congregations of Christians, including in Philadelphia, now Alasir in modern-day Turkey. He was also allowed to meet numerous Christian visitors and messengers. It was through these messengers that he was able to send 6 letters to nearby churches, and one to his friend Polycarp, who was now the Bishop of Smyrna. These letters became the epistles of St. Ignatius and were preserved and considered authentic as they were mentioned by the historian Eusebius early in the 4th century. These are the Epistle to the Ephesians. It is an urgent call for unity, orthodoxy, and submission to church authority. The letter praises the Ephesian church for its faith and spiritual order while also warning against the danger of false teachers. The Epistle to the Magnesians. Ignatius emphasizes the importance of Christian unity under the leadership of a single bishop and warns against the danger of false teachings, specifically a form of Judaizing. Ignatius also insists on the historical reality of Jesus' birth, passion, and resurrection to counter heresy. The Epistle to the Trallians. In this work, Ignatius wrote about maintaining church unity through obedience to church leaders as a safeguard against heresy. Among the heresies he preached against were Docetic heresy, which denied the true physicality of Christ, emphasizing that Jesus was truly born, crucified, and resurrected. He also thanked the Trallian Christians for sending their bishop, Polybius, to visit him in Smyrna, who reported about the city's steadfast faith. The Epistle to the Romans. The central theme is Ignatius's fervent desire for martyrdom, which he viewed as a supreme act of discipleship and the only way to attain perfect union with God. The primary purpose of the letter is to implore the Roman Christians not to intervene and stop his death. His intense desire for martyrdom is the central focus of this letter, distinguishing it from his others which more heavily address church hierarchy and heretical warnings. The Epistle to the Philadelphians. This work emphasized the importance of unity within the church and obedience to its leadership. Among its key themes are support for the local bishop, defense of the gospel over Jewish law, and the centrality of the Eucharist. He wrote that Christ's passion and resurrection surpasses the Old Testament law. The Epistle to the Smyrnians. It has 2 key themes. First is a theological defense or a strong warning against the Docetist heresy, which claimed that Jesus' physical body was an illusion. The second is ecclesiastical authority or an appeal for church unity and obedience to the local bishop, elders, and deacons. In this letter, the term Catholic Church is considered to have appeared for the first time. The Epistle to Polycarp, a bishop of Smyrna. In this letter, he exhorted Polycarp to lead his congregation with care, wisdom, and unwavering faith, emphasizing the importance of church unity, obedience to the bishop, and firmness against false teachings. The letter also includes practical instructions on caring for the needy, managing church affairs, and overseeing marriages. Finally, Ignatius asks Polycarp to organize a messenger mission to his home church in Antioch to celebrate the peace it has found and to send letters to other churches with the news. These letters are among the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. The letters bore signs of being written in great haste due to run-on sentences and an unsystematic succession of thought. He might not have had time to refine these letters. Ignatius arrived in Rome and was soon fed to the lions in the Colosseum. His martyrdom is recorded in the Martyrium Ignatii, a work that claims to be an eyewitness account of the events leading up to his death and martyrdom. It was supposed to have been written by a deacon in Tarsus. In this text, Ignatius's remains were carried back to Antioch by his companions. The relics were eventually transferred to the Basilica de San Clemente in Rome. Saint Ignatius of Antioch is among the greatest leaders of the early Christian Church and is recognized as one of the three Apostolic Fathers. Apostolic Fathers are those with direct ties to the Apostles and left behind written works. The other two are Ignatius's close friend, Saint Polycarp of Smyrna, and the fourth Pope, Saint Clement of Rome. The work of Ignatius of Antioch is considered one of the earliest witnesses to the hierarchical structure of the Catholic Church because his letters emphasize the authority of bishops as successors to the apostles and the importance of unity under their leadership. He was the first to use the term Catholic Church to describe the universal, united Christian community and also wrote about the significance of the Eucharist. Saint Ignatius's feast day is October 17th. Due to the nature of his martyrdom, he is usually in chains or surrounded by lions. Thank you for watching. How influential was Saint Ignatius of Antioch in establishing the early Catholic Church? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please help us share the good word by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.